The alarm on my console screamed before I even finished sitting down. Red light filled the bridge of my ship, and every officer around me froze for half a second before their training took over. I did not have time to ask what was happening. I already knew. I had been waiting for this moment for 4 years, and now it was here, and my hands were shaking anyway. My name is Daniel Whitlock, and I command a fleet that most of the galaxy has never heard of. That was always the plan. The signal on my screen was coming from a colony called HFY, a small farming world with 40,000 people on it. Retired workers, young families, children who had never seen a battle in their lives. 3 warships from an alien race called the Thren were sitting above that colony, and their weapons were already charging. I opened a private channel to my second-in-command, a sharp young woman named Grace Ferris, who had served with me since the beginning of this secret program. Her face appeared on my screen, pale but steady. "Sir, they are not slowing down," she said. "Thren cruisers are locked on. This is not a drill, and it is not a warning shot." I felt something cold settle into my chest. "Get me eyes on the colony, now." The main screen flickered and showed a live feed from a small monitoring device we had hidden near Ashfall months earlier, just in case something like this ever happened. Nobody in the Galactic Council knew that device existed. Nobody knew about half of what we had built. For 4 decades, humanity had been a member of that council, the group of powerful alien species that ruled over trade, law, and war across known space. We were the youngest species there, and also the weakest, at least in their eyes. We fixed their broken machines. We fought their wars on the worst battlefields. We cured their diseases when their own scientists gave up, and in return, they let us sit in the back of their meeting hall and nowhere else. I used to believe that was simply how things worked. Then I watched the numbers on a report about Ashfall, and I understood something else entirely. The colony had refused to leave their homes when the Thren asked for the land to build a communication station. The governor of Ashfall had said no because there was nowhere else for 40,000 people to go on such short notice. The council had called that refusal an act of obstruction, and obstruction, according to their law, could be answered with force. On my screen, the first Thren ship fired. I watched a beam of light cut through the colony's weak shield like it was paper. Grace's voice cracked slightly as she read out the damage reports flooding in from the colony's own emergency channel. Buildings collapsing, power stations failing, a hospital losing contact in the middle of a transmission. I made myself keep watching. I did not look away, not even once, because I needed to remember every second of it for what came next. "Sir," Grace said quietly, "the feed just went dark. They destroyed the monitoring device." I nodded slowly. My throat felt tight, but my voice came out steady. "Then we already have everything we need." 4 hours later, the council called an emergency session. I was not part of the official human delegation, but I was allowed to sit in the observation gallery, high above the main floor, along with a handful of other officers from Earth. From up there, I could see everything. The chamber was enormous, built for species far taller than us, with seats curved in strange shapes to fit bodies unlike our own. The human delegation sat in the very back row, as always, small and quiet among giants. A tall alien with pale blue skin and sharp eyes stood at the center platform. His name was Ambassador Corvain, leader of the Thren delegation, and he spoke with the calm tone of someone who believed he had already won. The action taken against the colony known as Ashfall was necessary and proportionate, he said, his voice echoing through the chamber. The colony obstructed lawful development. This outcome should serve as an example to any member species considering similar defiance. He turned his head, ever so slightly, toward the back row where the human delegation sat. It was a small movement, but I saw it clearly from above, and I understood exactly what it meant. This was not really about Ashfall. This was a message aimed directly at us. I felt my hands curl into fists on the railing in front of me. For 40 years, humanity had proven itself useful to this council. We rebuilt their broken transportation systems when their engineers could not solve the problem. We held dangerous front lines during conflicts other species refused to fight. We developed medicine that saved millions of lives that were not even our own. And through all of that, we let them believe we were simple, helpful, harmless. We let them believe that because it gave us time to build something they never expected. While the council watched our public fleet, the ships we allowed them to inspect and measure and dismiss as weak, we built a second fleet in complete secret. Hidden shipyards in quiet star systems nobody bothered to check. Engineers and scientists who told no one outside a small trusted circle. Pilots and soldiers who trained for years without ever appearing on any official record. I was given command of that hidden fleet 3 years ago, and until this exact moment, we had never used it for anything beyond training exercises. As Ambassador Corvain continued speaking, Describing the deaths of 40,000 people as a simple lesson in obedience, I quietly opened a secure channel on my personal device, one that no scanner in that entire chamber was built to detect. I sent a single command. Prepare to move. 9 hours later, I stood on the bridge of my flagship, a vessel called the Horizon Guard, watching a wall of stars shift and blur as our entire hidden fleet dropped out of transit space above the main staging point of the Thren military. Hundreds of ships, built in silence over years, appeared all at once above their strongest defensive position. Grace stood beside me, her eyes fixed on the tactical display showing our position relative to their fleet. Sir, they are scrambling. Their sensors clearly did not detect us coming. Good, I said. Open a channel to the Council, all frequencies. I want every species listening. A moment later, the connection opened, and I could see confused faces appearing across dozens of screens. Alien leaders pulled suddenly from their daily routines to answer an emergency signal none of them expected. I kept my voice level, even though my heart was pounding hard enough that I could feel it in my ears. This is Fleet Commander Daniel Whitlock of Earth. Ambassador Corvain called the destruction of Ashfall a demonstration. I am here to offer the same courtesy. Silence followed, thick and heavy, stretching across every screen. You have 30 seconds to order your fleet to stand down, I continued. After that, we will consider this matter settled by other means. I was not offering that time out of kindness, though many people have assumed that over the years, and I have never bothered to correct them. I offered it because 30 seconds was enough for every species watching to see, clearly and permanently, that we gave a warning the Thren never gave to Ashfall. Whatever happened after that moment, the record would show who acted with restraint and who did not. Ambassador Corvain's face appeared on my screen. His sharp eyes narrowed with something between anger and disbelief. You would not dare. Those were his exact words. You would not dare. 40 years of watching humanity clean up messes and fight other people's wars had convinced an entire council that we had no limits of our own, no lines that could not be crossed. That belief was about to be corrected in the most direct way possible. The 30 seconds ended, and the Thren fleet did not stand down. Instead, their ships began charging weapons, preparing to fire on a force 10 times their size, either out of pride or simple disbelief that this was really happening. I gave the order. What followed was fast, precise, and aimed only at military targets. Our hidden fleet had spent years training for exactly this kind of engagement, and the difference in preparation showed within minutes. Thren warships lost power one by one, disabled rather than destroyed wherever possible. Their weapons systems shut down before they could complete a single attack. I want to be clear about something, because it matters. We did not target their homeworld. We did not target civilians. Every strike was directed only at the vessels and command structures that had ordered and carried out the attack on Ashfall. We were not interested in becoming the very thing we were punishing. Within 20 minutes, the Thren staging fleet had surrendered completely. Grace read out the final status report with a small, tired smile on her face. All hostile vessels disabled or surrendered, sir. No further resistance detected. I let out a breath I did not realize I had been holding. But the story did not end there, and I think that surprised the rest of the galaxy more than the battle itself, because humanity had one more move to make, and it was not a move made with weapons. 3 days later, I stood on the main floor of the council chamber for the first time in my life, no longer confined to the back row above. The room was silent as I walked toward the center platform, every species watching with an expression somewhere between curiosity and quiet fear. I looked around at the delegates from a dozen different worlds, beings who had spent decades treating my species like a useful tool rather than an equal partner, and then I spoke. Humanity has no interest in ruling this council, I said, my voice carrying clearly through the enormous chamber. We have no interest in replacing any species here, or taking territory that does not belong to us, or punishing an entire people for the actions of their military leaders. I paused, letting that sink in before continuing. What we do require is simple. Our fleet currently holds position at 11 strategic points across council space. Those ships will withdraw the moment this council formally recognizes that Ashfall was not a lawful action, and the moment every member species here understands, without question, that any future attack on a human world, or a human ally, will be answered exactly as this one was. A representative from a species called the Koran, generally seen as a quiet and cautious people, raised a hand slowly from her seat. And if this council refuses your terms? I looked directly at her, and then let my gaze move slowly across the entire chamber, resting for just a moment on Ambassador Corvain before continuing. Then we will simply continue holding those 11 points until it changes its mind, We are patient. We have proven that already, over 40 years. The chamber remained silent for a long moment. Then, one by one, delegates began speaking quietly among themselves, considering exactly how much had changed in the span of a single day. It took 11 more hours of discussion before the council formally agreed to our terms. Ashfall was recognized as an unlawful attack. Ambassador Corvain was removed from his position, and the Thren government issued a public apology, though I understood clearly that no apology could ever bring back the 40,000 people who had died that day. I ordered our fleet to withdraw from all 11 positions exactly as promised, because our word mattered to us, and because keeping it proved something important about who we actually were. In the weeks that followed, everything changed. Human representatives were given seats at the main table of council discussions, for the first time in 40 years, no longer confined to the back rows reserved for lesser species. Other member worlds that had quietly suffered under similar unfair treatment began approaching our delegation privately, asking questions, seeking alliances, wondering if humanity might be willing to stand beside them the next time a stronger species decided their world was expendable. I did not attend most of those meetings myself. I returned instead to Ashfall, along with Grace and a small group of volunteers, to help however we could with what remained of the colony. There was not much left to rebuild in the areas closest to the original strike, but the outer regions of the colony had survived, and thousands of families were still there, trying to understand how to continue living after everything they had lost. I met a young man there named Oliver Bramwell, maybe 20 years old, who had lost both of his parents in the attack and was now caring for his younger sister alone. He asked me a question I still think about often. Was it worth it? He asked. All those years pretending to be weak, just so you could surprise them later? Would it not have been better to show them from the very beginning what we were capable of? I thought carefully before answering, because he deserved an honest response, not a comfortable one. I do not know if worth it is the right way to think about it, I told him. We did not choose to hide our strength because we wanted to trick anyone. We hid it because we understood, a long time ago, that a species with no real power has to be very careful, and very patient, until the moment finally comes when patience is no longer the right choice. I wish that moment had never come. I wish your parents were still here. But I promise you this. Because of what happened, it will be much harder for the council to let something like this happen again. To any world, human or otherwise. Oliver was quiet for a while, looking out toward the horizon where new construction had already begun on the far edge of the colony. Then he nodded slowly. My sister wants to join the fleet when she is old enough. I think I understand why now. I did not have a good answer for that, so I simply placed a hand on his shoulder and let the moment pass in silence. Grace found me later that evening, standing near the edge of the colony where the old monitoring device used to sit before it was destroyed. She did not say anything at first, just stood beside me, watching the same empty horizon. You know, she said finally, some of the other delegates are already calling this the day humanity changed everything. I heard someone in the hallway say we finally showed the galaxy who we really are. I shook my head slowly. We did not show them who we are. We showed them what happens when patience finally runs out. Those are very different things, and I think it matters that people understand the difference. Does it change anything, really? She asked. Do you think the council will actually treat us differently now, or will they simply be more careful about how they treat us badly? It was a fair question, and I did not pretend to have a perfect answer. I think it will take years before we know for certain, but at the very least, no delegate in that chamber will ever again stand up and call the deaths of an entire colony a simple lesson in obedience. That alone was worth standing up for. We stood there together for a long while, watching construction crews work under bright floodlights on the far side of the colony, rebuilding homes for people who had lost everything in a single morning. I think often about Ambassador Corvain's words before everything happened. You would not dare, he said, certain that humanity had no line it would ever defend, no limit that truly mattered to us. He was wrong about that, in the most costly way possible for the people of Ashfall, and in the most permanent way possible for the reputation of his own species. Humanity did have a line. We simply never needed to show anyone exactly where it was, until the day someone crossed it anyway, believing there would be no consequence at all. There was a consequence. It came without cruelty and without unnecessary destruction, aimed only at those responsible, and it ended the moment its purpose was served. But it came, and it was absolute, and it left no question in the mind of anyone who witnessed it about what humanity was truly capable of when the people we loved were placed in danger. I still think about the woman I saw running toward a school on that first monitoring feed, moments before everything went dark. I never learned her name, I never will, but I think about her often, and I think about Oliver and his sister, and I think about 40,000 people who deserved a future they never got to see. We did not act because we wanted power. We did not act because we wanted revenge. We acted because mercy is something you offer before people die, not after. And the council had already spent whatever mercy it had on itself, long before it ever considered offering any to us. Ashfall taught the galaxy something it should never have needed to learn the hard way. A quiet species is not always a weak one. A patient species is not always a harmless one. And a line that has never been tested does not mean it does not exist. It only means nobody has been foolish enough to cross it yet. They were foolish enough, and Earth answered, exactly as it needed to, without hesitation and without mercy for those who had chosen cruelty first.